Hello, welcome to Smash Hit Sports. I'm Cody, that's Nick, and today we are giving out our SEC preview, the best conference in college football. I don't know if Nick agrees with me on that or not, but they are the best conference in college
Definitely.
football. And boy, is this year in the SEC going to be outstanding. But before we get started, make sure to like this video if you're watching on YouTube. If you're subscribed to the podcast, or you're listening to the podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything all season long, because we are less than a week away from actual football, and I cannot be more excited. Nick, let's jump into the SEC, and we have to start with Alabama. New head coach, Kalen DeBoer, coming in from Washington. Obviously, when you lose what I think is the greatest college football coach of all time in Nick Saban, how you recover from that you never want to be the guy after the guy. And that's what Kalen DeBoer is. What are your thoughts on Alabama this year?
Yeah, they didn't lose as many people as a lot of people think. They also didn't get as many people from Washington as people would assume, just because Washington was such a seasoned veteran, senior-led team last year. So everyone pretty much went to the draft. I know they have Parker Brailsford, who's probably the best interior lineman in college football. He transferred in. He's fantastic. The line should be good. But they've gotten some guys transferring in from some more unknown schools that I bet a lot of people don't really know about, that I think are going to make an immediate impact and be really, really good. So I think that there's a culture change that is hard to deal with, and it's hard to underestimate how, different it must feel to go from Nick Saban, like specifically Nick Saban, to anybody else, just especially when it came kind of out of nowhere, is just different than if you go to UTSA and you lose your head coach. Like when you committed to go to UTSA, that was a possibility. When you committed to go to Alabama, I don't think you ever thought you were going to be playing for someone else other than Nick Saban right now. So I think there might be signs of, incontinuity and stuff that could throw, some wrenches at them having a great season. But they're still a stacked team, and Kalen DeBoer is still an incredible coach. So I still very much like this Alabama team. I think they're going to be really good.
Yeah, Kalen DeBoer, I'm not very worried about, honestly. I think he's going to do just fine in the SEC. I think he's going to do great in year one. I think more importantly is he going to be able to recruit in the SEC over the long term? Well, he doesn't have to worry about this year. He just has to worry about winning games. Alabama's win total is 9.5. They have won 10 games every single year since 2007, which is arguably the most chaotic year in the history of college football. I don't know how I feel about this team, because the highs were high last year. When they were on, they were very, very good. And I understand that Jalen Milroe is an early Heisman candidate, but when they were off, dude, they were bad. They were down or barely up against South Florida on the road in like week 3. It took I understand that the 4th and 31 play is absolutely unbelievable, and it saved their season. But they needed a play on 4th and 31 to save their season. It was because Jalen Milroe was against a not great Auburn team. And Jalen Milroe was not great in that game before that. And then he was also not great in the game against Michigan. And I understand that Michigan's defense was arguably the best in the country last year. But I have some genuine concern with this Alabama team in terms of, can they actually compete for a title? That being said, I still have them going 10-2. It's still Alabama. I just don't think they are set it and forget it best team in the country. I would argue that they're probably not even a top 5 team in my mind, but they're still top 10. Very, very, very easily still a top 10 program.
Yeah, it's tough because they play, I believe, Tennessee in Neyland Stadium, and they play Georgia pretty early in the season, which is kind of rare for Alabama, Georgia to play early. And then do they play Oklahoma on the road?
They do play Oklahoma.
Yeah,
on
and
the
that's a
road.
tough place to play. Like that's also like a new place for, like Alabama has played Oklahoma in the college football playoff a bunch, and they crush them. It seems like every time, but playing in Oklahoma, it's just a different beast, man. So I think they're going to drop 3 to those 3 teams, but I don't think any of them are going to be like detrimental, worrisome losses. I think it's just going to be a product of the circumstance that now the SEC is more stacked because you added 2 great teams, and your schedule is not like really easy this year, and like 9-3 is
Their
still
schedule's hard.
it's hard as hell, and 9-3 is still a really good season. But like I think that Oklahoma loss would probably be the one where people would be like, "Whoa, like Alabama's not like this invincible team." But Tennessee and Georgia, I don't think people would really bat an eye if that happened, especially given Tennessee winning last time they hosted Alabama. I can see it happening again. So
Their road games this year at Wisconsin, at Vanderbilt, whatever, at Tennessee, at LSU, at Oklahoma.
yeah,
That's a tough ass road slate. That's a tough ass road slate.
that's the
That
other thing.
doesn't
Is
include
LSU could get them too. Like let's say they beat Oklahoma or they beat Tennessee, throw in LSU in there. Like 9-3 feels pretty safe, because it could be 8-4 if things go off the wall a little bit, but it could be 10-2, which I think for me is kind of like that would be a big success in my opinion for DeBoer, given the strength of the schedule.
I would agree, honestly. 10-2 first year, and I think 10-2 in the SEC gets you in the playoff. If we're being quite honest, I don't know if it might get you to the SEC championship game, but
and 9-3 is like with the name brand of Alabama. If 3 losses are pretty close, chaos.
If there is a 3-loss team that gets in, it will be from the SEC.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's fair. Arkansas. Sam Pittman's still the head man. KJ Jefferson transfers out to UCF. Rocket Sanders transfers out to South Carolina. And I have no idea what the identity of this team is. They have Taylon Green at quarterback, who is a freak athlete.
Can't throw the ball.
And cannot throw the ball. They're out of conference. They play at Oklahoma State in the out of conference. I think is a tough game. I think it's going to be a long year for the Hogs. I think it's going to be a real long year for the Hogs.
So do I. What's their win total?
Their win total's 4.5.
Okay. It's interesting. I haven't seen that many Power 5 teams with a lower win total than that, but every year there are Power 5 teams that finish with a worse record than that. So Arkansas, for me, is one of those teams that I have going 3-9. It is just going to be a disaster, in my opinion. Now, last year, I was thinking about how last year, a lot of the teams that you and I didn't really put that much thought into, we just looked at the roster, looked at the schedule. We were like, no need to overthink it. They're going to be bad. A lot of them ended up being pretty good, right? Like West Virginia, a couple like Arizona. So I was like, am I being stupid here? But I looked into it more, and I really don't think I am. I don't think there's a world that they are good at all. I feel confident in 3-9.
Yep, I have them going 4-8. So I don't hate that at all. I think this team is very much not great. Auburn, another year under Hugh Freeze, right? His first year last year was they went 6-7, right? They made a bowl, but there were a lot of games on that schedule that got real dicey. That game against Cal was damn close. That game against Mississippi State was damn close. And now they have a schedule in which they have to go at Georgia, at Missouri, at Kentucky in 3 straight weeks to start October. That is actually, no, that's their whole month of October. Their whole month of October is those 3 road games. That's brutal. And then you end the year at Alabama. I'm not a Hugh Freeze believer. I'm going to be very honest. I'm not a Hugh Freeze believer. I'm also not a Peyton Thorne believer. He had 16 touchdowns and 10 interceptions.
I don't like Peyton Thorne. That's my big
That's not good enough.
Is that I just cannot get behind. I think they're like an older team this year. You could argue stars are aligning a little bit, right? Hugh Freeze, the continuity of just having the same coach, blah, blah, blah. I just don't think they're going to be able to do it with Thorne. at quarterback. So this is one that maybe I'm proved wrong. Maybe both of us are proved wrong, because I'm guessing you're going to be kind of right there with me. But I have them 6-6, and I've seen some people with them at 8-4 saying Auburn is being slept on. I'm like, maybe, but like maybe they're just ignoring the fact that offensively they're not a threat at all, really, to me. I love their running back. I love Jarquez Hunter. He's fantastic. Probably the best running back in the SEC, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, you could argue.
Yeah, you could. It's tough, and again, the SEC is just such a gauntlet. So I'm going 6.
Yep, and I also have them going 6-6. They have an easier SEC schedule in terms of like who they play, but I just don't have. Like you said, I don't have a ton of faith in that offense or in that quarterback.
What's their total?
Their win total is 7.5.
Yeah, so we're lower on it. See, that's what I'm saying. Some people are 8-4.
7.5 was shocking to me, honestly. I was stunned when I saw that.
We'll see.
All right, we have to talk about Florida, and I'm not going to do any introduction except for I'm just going to read their schedule.
Here we
go. The University of Miami, Florida, Samford, Texas A&M, at Mississippi State, UCF, at Tennessee, Kentucky, at Georgia, at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, at Florida State. They run the Florida gauntlet, playing every Power 5 Florida team in UCF, Florida State, and Miami. This team has an unbelievably difficult schedule. Unbelievably difficult schedule.
It's the hardest I've ever seen a schedule, and it's just like a sad tale, really, because like Billy Napier and the staff over there probably gone after this year. You'd have to assume, because it's just not going to go well. But I think Florida could beat, like, I think what I have is, and this kind of happened last year with them as well, where their record's not going to be that bad after like week 5, right? Like I think they could be like 4-1. I think I have them beating A&M. But then it's just like, at what point do you just start getting, like, you're losing hope? You're looking out to that next game. You lose 2 in a row. That next game is somehow even harder. You lose that one, and then the next game's even harder on the road, and you're beaten up and battered. I think it's just going to be like a train is just inevitably going to fall off the track situation. So, maybe they're 4-1, and then they finish 5-7. I think it's what I have, but it's really tough.
I have them finishing 5-7. This roster is not a bad roster at all.
They're going to look okay, right?
Yeah, like Graham Mertz is a good quarterback. Eugene Wilson is a phenomenal offensive threat. Like, he's one of the best athletes in the SEC, I think. There's the secondary, like,
Jason Marshall
got some help. Yeah, I don't hate this roster at all. It's just that they play an unbelievably difficult schedule. So I also have them going 5-7, but I think they're closer to 6-6 and making a bowl game than they are to 5-7. Like, I have them beating Miami in week 1. That would not shock me at all. They upset a ranked Utah team.
And they're at home, right? They tend to win those home openers.
Yeah, like, you got to go to the Swamp. That's going to be an unbelievably difficult place to play. Not that I trust in Billy Napier, but I trust in the talent on this roster. I think Billy Napier is a dog shit coach. I think he's the worst coach. We talked about this in when I was talking about Cincinnati, that I think Scott Satterfield is the second worst coach in college football. I think Billy Napier is the worst coach in college football. And I feel very confident in that. He will be gone after this year. However, this Florida team is not a bad team. They are a good football team with an NFL level schedule. But I truly think that there is a shot that they make a bowl game. Like 4.5 as their win total. If you look at the other teams in this conference that have a 4.5 win total, not anywhere close in talent. Florida is significantly better. Yeah. They're better than Mississippi State. They're better. They have more talent than Arkansas. They have more talent than Vanderbilt. I would argue they have more talent than Auburn.
Yeah.
They just have a much more difficult schedule. So,
no, it's tricky. But I do agree. I think they could pull a rabbit out of their hat a couple times. Like, they're not the type of team that's like, oh, could they upset a team once this year? And people are like, whoa, Florida's good. I think they could do it 2 or 3 times this year.
Yep.
It's just the problem is that they're going to have to pull an upset if they want to win at all because they're just playing that hard of a schedule. So, yes, I do think that they could surprise a couple teams. Does that mean, they're going to be like 8-4 or anything? No, they'd have to be like world beaters to go 8-4.
I do want to say this. Does 8-4 get them considered for the college football playoff?
What's the scenario for them to go 8-4? Because let's
say they're
4 hardest road games they have.
Okay, Ole Miss, Texas, Alabama. Oh, sorry, wrong schedule. Tennessee, Georgia, Texas, Florida State.
Yeah, so
all road games.
Tennessee, Georgia, Texas, Florida State.
Yeah, so all of those teams are ranked in the top 15.
Those could be,
or they could also be Ole Miss at home. Like they could legitimately have an entire schedule of.
Now they have
teams.
eight games they win. They would have a win against Ole Miss, who let's say they're top 10.
Yeah,
who
LSU,
Miami, LSU, three teams.
Texas
A&M, all these ranked teams. Like
4 ranked teams.
They could have like 5 ranked wins at the end of the year and 4 top 10 losses. That would be fascinating to be like,
I would love to sit in the room with that committee when that discussion would happen.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because they would be brought up.
That's like Michigan State in basketball, where like they have 14 losses. It's like, Jesus Christ, get them out of the tournament. But then the committee is like, well, look at their wins. They beat Purdue. They beat all these great teams. They get an 8 seed. And I'm like, oh, shit. Like the committee clearly values wins more than losses. So, but obviously that's basketball. So I would be curious, though.
Yep. All right, keeping it moving to Georgia, the Dogs. A disappointing year last year in which they went undefeated and then lost the SEC championship, which is insane that that's the level that we're at with Georgia. And outside of all of the off the field issues that we've had over the offseason, this is the number 1 team in the country. The AP poll number 1, their win total is 10.5. They have the best coach in college football in Kirby Smart. They return both of their coordinators in Mike Bobo and Glenn Schumann. And now you are also returning who I think is one of, if not the best quarterback in college football in Carson Beck. This team is ranked number 1 in the AP poll, and rightfully so. They're unbelievably talented.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's crazy the amount of reckless behavior from that Georgia team we're seeing because you don't see it from any other school. So it's fascinating that the recruiting strategy has sort of made itself clear. Kirby Smart does not give a shit about your personality or behavior patterns. But and it's also crazy to me that they could go 12-0 and then win their bowl game, a New Year's Six bowl game by like 60, but 1 loss to a playoff team in a game on a neutral site that really was a coin flip down to the 4th quarter. And it's a bust of a season because you lost that game. You lost 1 coin flip, but you destroyed the rest of your season. That reasons like that are why a 12-team playoff was very necessary. Do I think Georgia is going to bounce back? No, but that's mostly because they were really good last year. So it doesn't necessarily entail like bouncing back would be, will they be the number 1 team in the country the whole year? I don't think so. Obviously, we did our ACC prediction already. I have Clemson winning that game. I had to, but I have to, for continuity's sake, have that still. So I think 11-1 at the end of the year, very possible. But I think they could trip up at some point in that schedule. I think that's likely. Even if they do, they could be 10-2, go into the SEC championship game, which is what I have. It just depends on what happens in that SEC championship game.
So we talked in the Big Ten preview about Ohio State having a potentially undefeated season. I think that Ohio State actually has a better shot to go undefeated than Georgia does, because Georgia does have some spots on this schedule where you can absolutely trip up. You have to go at Clemson neutral site game against Clemson in week 1. You have to go at Alabama. You have to go at Texas. You have to go at Ole Miss. You got to play Tennessee at home. You got the world's largest cocktail party. Like, Georgia has more opportunities to slip up on their schedule. I think Ohio State has maybe two. Like, they have Oregon and they have Michigan, and really that's about it. That being said, I believe in Kirby Smart more than I believe in Ryan Day, and I do think that this roster barely, just barely, and it's because of Carson Beck, is better than Ohio State's. I have Georgia going undefeated. I do think that they are the best team in the country. I know I'm not fucking breaking any news there, but I have them going 12-0. So,
Yeah, and by no means is that foolish at all. I'm on the opposite side. Like, my Georgia prediction is probably their floor. I don't think that they could possibly do any worse given their roster and just trajectory and momentum and everything, right? They are kind of the Alabama of old, you could argue. So no way they don't get to 10 wins, in my opinion. But I do think it's possible that they could, we'll see when we get to the SEC championship. But I have them slipping up. And do you want to know the team I have them slipping up to, Cody? Other than Clemson?
Yes.
Take a guess. You'll never guess.
I'm gonna say it's Tennessee at home.
No, it is Kentucky.
You motherfucker! Why?
Kentucky sleeper defense, and it's at Kentucky, right? And I think
it is.
And I think that's just it's a why not, man? Crazy shit happens in college football. Why not? But again, that's me admitting, like, yes, I'm taking their floor. So if I'm going to be taking their floor, just throw something out. If it doesn't happen, they go 11-1. I think they're going to make
that would regardless. Be storylines from that would be obscene because Brock Vandegrift transferred from Georgia to Kentucky to be their starting quarterback this season. And let's talk about Kentucky.
Yeah, Kentucky's next, which is perfect, right?
Yeah, because that would be that storyline. Brock Vandegrift, I'm so excited to watch him play at Kentucky because they had Devin Leary last year, but he was banged up. He was never healthy. And like, it just didn't work. They still ended up being 7-6, but Brock Vandegrift, we've never seen play meaningful minutes.
Exactly. So this is my main thing. And Georgia fans listening might be like, oh, well, you're all wrong on this. And that's fine. I don't really know because I haven't seen Brock Vandegrift play. But before Stetson Bennett left, let's say Carson Beck decided to transfer out, right? And he went to some new school. I'm willing to bet he would have the same discourse as Vandegrift is having right now, where it's just like, oh, like he wasn't good enough to play at Georgia. He's probably some like mid-tier quarterback, blah, blah, blah. But if you're recruited by Kirby Smart and you're backing up, Carson Beck, he's incredible, who's to say that Vandegrift can't be really, really good, And like, I know Kentucky had Levis. They weren't great, even with that, but it's the defense that is really looking scary, in my opinion, sneaky scary. Like it has a lot of promise. I think it's a top 5 defense in the SEC this year.
Yeah, and that Barry and Brown too on offense, like, is an absolute weapon. I like this Mark Stoops squad. Like, I think their win totals at 6.5. That was very surprising to me. I think Kentucky could be one of the most shockingly good teams in the SEC this year. Like, I would not be surprised if they finish the season in the top 25 or close to it. Like, I think that they're that good. Especially, I have them going 8-4.
I have them 8-4 as well. Like, and with a Georgia win, I think that gets them in the top 25 at the end of the year, 100%. I just think that this is a sneaky good Kentucky team that, I have them losing to Florida. Seems like Florida, I grew up a Florida fan, so that Florida-Kentucky game is always early. Florida literally always wins, it feels like. I have them losing to Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Texas. And then they beat Georgia in this shocker, right, which I think is very possible for us to have a shocker in the SEC. And then the rest of their schedule is not that hard at all. Not that hard. They don't pick up that many other great wins by any means.
No. And they play 8 home games this year. 8. And of those 8 home games, obviously Georgia is the most difficult. But outside of that, they play South Carolina at home, Vanderbilt at home, Auburn at home, Louisville at home. They could win every single one of those games. They absolutely could win every
And
single
then
one
the
of those games.
non-conference
So
is besides Louisville, it's not hard, right? It's
Southern Miss, Ohio, Murray State.
exactly.
Very,
So
very, very winnable.
I do think that we're going to see, like, I do like that over a lot. Um,
Yep.
it's it obviously me taking them to beat Georgia's a massive shot in the dark, but that's what we're here for, right?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely love it. Let's talk LSU. I want you to set the stage for LSU because my thoughts on Brian Kelly and the LSU Tigers, a lot of the internet has told me that I'm very biased. So Nick, break down the LSU Tigers and how good this team is going to be this year.
Yeah, so you lose your Heisman winning quarterback and your two best receivers. And it's interesting because that offense was so 2019 LSU esque, where it was just 50 points kind of with ease type vibe. I don't think we're going to see that, but they have probably the best left tackle in Campbell. What's his first name? Blanket Walker Campbell. Will, yeah.
I think it's Will Campbell.
And then on the right side, I think they have Emory Jones, right tackle. And I'm not looking at their roster right now, so I'm blanking on names. Everything jumbles together. But they have probably maybe the best two tackles combination in college football. Their offensive line's good. So I think we're going to see more of a control the clock sort of LSU that we saw sometimes with Notre Dame with Brian Kelly. Is that going to work? I don't know. I don't think so necessarily. I don't think their defense is going to be much better than it was last year. It wasn't very good last year at all. Obviously, they have Harold Perkins, who is, I believe he moved positions as well. Like a lot of these guys are going to be more dominant, like Abdul Carter on Penn State. Perkins is going to be great. But I don't know. I don't have them being a real threat this year because of how much they lost. So I have them losing to Alabama, even though they have them at home. I have them losing to A&M rivalry week. I have them losing to Ole Miss, and then I have them losing to USC as well.
Yeah, I am also low on this LSU team. And I understand that everyone's like, oh, the defense was the problem. The defense was the problem. What got better? Like, I understand that they brought in Blake Baker from Missouri. I totally get that. But they did not do enough in the transfer portal, in my mind, to establish that this defense is going to improve because they're going to have to. They play some really damn good teams. Now, I think they got lucky in terms of like how their schedule lines up a little bit because they play some very, very easy teams, like just absolute dog water. But going into Texas A&M and winning that game is going to be very tough. And then you play Alabama, and then you got to play Oklahoma. Brian Kelly, at no point in his career, has ever been a winner of big games, and there are a lot of big games on this LSU schedule. I don't understand where the hype comes from. And they lose that to Florida State in week 1 last year. And then they lose a monumental game against Ole Miss on the road. And we just are shocked. Brian Kelly has never won a huge game in his life, ever. The biggest game is when we beat Clemson during COVID when Trevor Lawrence didn't play. That was
heartbreaking.
That was our biggest win. When the opposing team's starting quarterback got COVID, they could not field a good enough team to win. That's his biggest win.
Yeah.
I am not a believer in Brian Kelly. I think he is one of the most overrated coaches in the history of college football. Everybody's like, oh, he's a top 5 coach right now, top 10 coach right now. Based on what? He has 0 New Year's 6 bowl wins. 0. He was at Notre Dame for 12 years, dude. 12, and does not have a single New Year's 6 bowl win. It's incredible. He's been to the college football playoff twice and a national championship during the BCS era once, lost all 3 of those games. He does not win big games. He had another chance to get to the college football playoff and beat Clemson in the ACC title game in 2020, and he choked that away too. I am so sick and tired of people proclaiming that because he is at LSU, that will lead him to be good. He is the problem. This LSU roster is very talented, and I believe in Garrett Nussmeier, and I believe in their weapons, and I understand that they lost Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. I don't care. As long as Brian Kelly is the coach of this football team, they will lose big games. I have them going 9-3. I have them going under their win total at 9.5. And LSU will either miss the college football playoff or just barely get into the college football playoff. And then guess what? They'll lose that game too.
Yeah, and it's also interesting you bring up last year. They weren't really close to making the college football playoff last year, and they lost so much talent. Like, it'd be different if they were this dominant force. Like the 2019 LSU team was dominant, and then the next year, nope, not really at all, because they lost all their pieces. Last year, LSU was, hovering top 10, blah, 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 but like, they lost so many pieces that were so crucial to them even getting to that point that I don't necessarily think they're going to be better than they were last year. There's no way, right? That defies logic to think that way in my head. So 9-3, I think, would be possible. But yeah, I think the under on their win total feels pretty good.
Yep. Keeping it moving to Mississippi State. I think this is finally the transition out of the Mike Leach era. Obviously, they hired Zach Arnett, the defensive coordinator, but Mike Leach died, in December of that year. They scrambled to find a hire, so they hired Zach Arnett. And at that point, like, Will Rogers had been playing well, but then he didn't play well because they completely changed the entire offensive system. So Will Rogers is transferred out. He's at Washington now, and Jeff Lebby comes in, who's the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. And I think this is a good, needed, fresh start and fresh reset for Mississippi State. The problem is when you have a restart and you have a reset, you have a lot of roster turnover. It's going to be tough. So I think they're in for a long year. Their win total's 4.5. I have them going 5-7. I think it's going to be a long year for Mississippi State, but I do think they are headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I have them 4-8 as well. It's a lot of the matter of just in this conference, you're gonna have to have teams that are at the bottom, and it's really tough to ignore your Mississippi States, your Arkansas, your Vanderbilts, because those are really the three teams that don't have juice in that sense. Every other team, like, could a team just have a disastrous season? Yes, but it's just stupid to predict that when you could just say, yeah, Mississippi State's going to go 4-8, and almost every team that plays them is going to get a free win, because that's just a reality, it feels like. But who knows? 10 years ago, Mississippi State was number one in the first ever 4-team college football playoff poll, and no one thought that was possible. So maybe they shock us again, but I doubt it.
Yep. Let's keep it moving. But before we get to the next team, college football betting guide. The reports are in on some of these, and when I tell you, I love the feedback that I've gotten on the betting guide, like essentially saying how, like, the time and effort is there in this thing. It's 100+ pages, and I truly think for $20, you are not going to get a better resource to help you win bets. And there are a lot of people who pay guys $20, $50, $100 a month for their picks. I hate that. Spend $20 on this, get all of the information and make the picks yourself, and be the best and most informed bettor in the world. The link is in the description of the video if you're watching on YouTube or in my bio. I truly think, like, it's I made the exact guy that I would want as a sports bettor. And I think, not to toot my own fucking horn, I think I nailed it. So yeah, take that for what it is.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you in the sense of don't pay people for your fucking picks. That's pussy shit. You don't do that.
Yes, agree.
You gotta learn.
Look, if you listen to this podcast, you know ball.
Yeah.
Act like it.
Exactly.
Act like
it. And you can read this betting guide and be like, man, I'm gonna do the exact opposite because this is what I think. I like that a lot more than the alternative.
But That's the thing too. Like the bets in the guide, like that's like what 10 pages of the 100 pages. The other stuff is just all stats and information.
Exactly.
Do with that what you
Mm-hmm.
will. Numbers don't lie. People lie, numbers don't. So let's get to Missouri. I'm so fucking high on this team, Nick. I love this Missouri team. They have the 63rd most difficult schedule of the 70 FBS teams. Their out of conference schedule is abundantly weak, and they start the season with Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, UMass, and Auburn. If you told me that Missouri starts 7-0 before they head into Tuscaloosa, Alabama to play the Crimson Tide, I would absolutely agree with you. I think this is a team that is unbelievably well set up for success. They bring back offensive coordinator Kirby Moore. They bring back Brady Cook, who was an absolute stud last year. And they also have the best wide receiver in the country in Luther Burden. I think this Missouri Tigers team is set up unbelievably well for success. I think if Missouri is ever going to take a step forward in the SEC, this is the year to do it. This is the best roster they've had since they have moved into the SEC. And I truly think that they have a shot to play for an SEC title at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
This team is that good. These guys are those dudes. And as much as I think Eli Drinkwitz is kind of a dork, he's a pretty decent head coach, and I think he can get this team to an 11-1 record.
Whoa, 11-1. Yeah, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid necessarily. One, I think that Missouri kind of last year was their step-up year, in my opinion. So I don't think that they're going to regress back into being just an afterthought. But I can't ignore, the past 10 years of my life. And like, it's really hard to just become a staple of the conference kind of out of nowhere. So yes, they stepped up, but I think they're going to be more similar to last year and maybe get a little unlucky here and there rather than step up again. I think that logic and the odds would say that maybe just a more predictable season in the sense of like a 9-3, 8-4 makes sense to me. 9-3 with losses to A&M, Alabama, and Oklahoma would be a standard prediction. If you wanted to go one more than that, I think that's fine. 10-2 would be fine. 11-1, you're drinking the Kool-Aid. Now, I think that's fine because you do have the numbers to back it up. And as you said, numbers don't lie. But you could also go on the other side of that spectrum and have them drop a weird game. Maybe someone's injured. Maybe Brady Cook's hurt for a game against South Carolina and they lose, in Columbia. Maybe that happens. It's what I have. I have 8-4. I think they'd be pretty happy with 8-4 because if you go 8-4 in the SEC every year, if that's what you are now becoming as a school, you're in a great spot. But we just 2 years ago, they weren't anything close to that, And the years before that, it was even worse. So I can't have him taking that next jump. Not for me, but I respect you.
Fair enough. We disagree on this one, but I have to pick one team. I feel like I've picked one team in every conference to really hitch my wagon to. It's Indiana in the Big Ten. It's Missouri in the SEC. It's Virginia Tech in the ACC, and it's Kansas State in the Big 12. Mm-hmm. And if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down swinging. I like those teams quite a bit. But let's talk about Oklahoma. The difference between Texas and Oklahoma's strength of schedule is absurd. Texas has the 31st most difficult schedule as they enter the SEC, and Oklahoma has the 4th most difficult schedule as they enter the SEC. And I don't know if you remember a game that happened in September last year, a little Red River shootout, but Oklahoma beat that Texas team last year. And I understand that last year's team is not this year's team. But I think people are sleeping on this year's Oklahoma a little bit. Like for some reason, people are just assuming that Texas is going to come into the SEC and be a top 5 team in the country and compete for a national title. But for some reason, Oklahoma is going to come into the SEC and they're just going to shit down their leg.
It's the narrative.
Why?
The narrative is completely different. You're exactly right. With Texas, no one's saying that. No one's saying, well, new conference, it's tough. Oklahoma, it's like, well, the new conference is tough. That's a brilliant point. I am drinking the Oklahoma Kool-Aid. you could argue this is the team I'm hitching my wagon to because of how many doubters there are of this team. Their win total, I believe, is 7.5, right? Because
Seven and
this
a
was one
half.
of my
Yep.
picks on your betting guide, was that they are going to
Yes, it
hit that
was.
over. So if you had the betting guide and you read that part, this is where I explain that in deeper form. But I feel like everything we've seen from Jackson Arnold is extremely positive. From
He's so
like
good, dude.
everything is so positive. Is it concerningly positive? I don't know, but I can't help myself but watch these throws he's making from these QB camps and whatnot, where it's like, wow, he looks better than every other SEC quarterback. All the reports out of Oklahoma are saying like he is the real fucking deal. And they have great receivers. They completely restructured the O-line, so that's a worry. But if Arnold is as good as people are saying, I don't know how much that's going to matter. And I think with Brent Venables and like Danny Stutzman and some of the pieces they have on defense, maybe it's the people just remember the Lincoln Riley Oklahoma defenses, and they're like, well, Oklahoma's defense isn't going to be able to hold up. I think they have a great defense. I think they're going to be really good.
I I think that's the turning point for this team. I think their defense is what, like, don't get me wrong, I like Jackson Arnold, but like Dylan Gabriel wasn't bad last year, and that offense was really solid. I think the defense is what makes the difference. Like, people are sleeping on this defense. They just think, oh, yeah, you're Oklahoma, bad defense. Not at all. This
Especially,
Brent Venables, I think this is the closest thing Brent Venables has had to his defense. You know
yes.
what I mean? Because his scheme is not an easy scheme to learn.
Oh, man.
It needs the right guys.
Yes.
Like, he finally has those pieces. He added some to the secondary. I like this Oklahoma team quite a bit.
Dude,
I have them going 9-3. Like, they're good. This is a good team.
People really forgot, like, Brent Venables for years and years was the best defensive coach in college football. Like, the amount of people that tried to pry him away from Clemson, he was like, nope, not doing it. I'm coming back. It took Oklahoma, who I believe that's his alma mater, or he used to coach there, something like that, to get him to leave. But like you're saying, it sometimes takes a little bit. And I would not be shocked if this is a top 5 defensive unit, because I know Brent Venables is capable of doing that, and they have the roster pieces to do it. Now, the 4th hardest strength of schedule leads me to also have them at 9-3. So it's hard for me to say like, oh, I'm hitching my wagon, because 9-3 is probably not going to get you into the college football playoff. It might. But I think they could possibly do better than that. I have them beating Texas again. I have them beating Ole Miss, and then I have them beating LSU. I have them losing those 3 games. My bad. But I have them beating pretty much everyone else. I have them beating Tennessee. I have them beating Alabama. I have them beating Missouri. But yes, losing to LSU, Ole Miss, and Texas. I had to give Brian one big win.
I think that Tennessee game week 4 is going to be huge. Mm-hmm. That's going to be huge for both of those teams. I'm very excited for that one. Ole Miss. Remember when I was like, oh yeah, Missouri's my team. And like, you have a great head coach, and you have a good offense, and they added some pieces on defense, and they're returning their starting quarterback, and they're returning one of the best wide receivers in the country. And they start out with like 6 pretty easy games. All of those things are also true about Ole Miss. Every single one of them. Jackson Dart, you're bringing back Jackson Dart. You're bringing back Trey Harris. And like, you also have Antoine Wells Jr. So like, they have the best probably 1-2 combo at wide receiver in the SEC. This team is so talented. And then you want to talk about people who went out and just got it in the transfer portal. Ole Miss went out and got it. They got a defensive tackle from Texas A&M who's going to be a dog in the middle of that defense that Ole Miss has not had since Robert Nkemdiche. Yep. I'm so excited for this.
They got Une Malin from Florida, the edge rusher, right?
Yes, they brought him in as well. Lane Kiffin brought Ole Miss to their first 10-win season in program history. And I think he might go fucking back-to-back.
I am very high on Ole Miss, and I might be higher than you are. But so I have them going 11-1 in the SEC. The only team going 11-1 in the SEC for me. I think they
Wow.
I think they have as good of a roster as Georgia, and I have Georgia beating them in the regular season still. But every other game, like you said, it feels like Ole Miss kind of lucked into a pretty good schedule this year as well. I think Jackson Dart could definitely win a Heisman this year. Um, Again, that transfer class is unbelievable. I was worried about the chemistry a little bit, but that has been disproven. Any issues with that has been completely disproven. It apparently they are meshing together better than teams that didn't get anyone from the transfer portal. So it's just it looks like this could be Ole Miss's year for real. And I know you were saying it with Missouri and like, yeah, they took a step up. Are they going to take another step up? It feels similar with Ole Miss, but again, 10 years ago, college football playoff, 14 college football playoff, first ranking, Ole Miss is in there. Like they've been up there before. It's just have they finished the job? They've beaten Alabama on the road before. Teams can't do that in the SEC. That never happens, but Ole Miss did that. I know that this team has the ability to have a great season. They just have to have a little luck on their side and kind of just get hot. And I'm banking on that happening. So yeah, 11-1 for me.
I also have Ole Miss at 11-1.
Nice.
I think this team is so fucking good, dude. They're so good.
They're stacked.
All right. South Carolina. Beamer ball kind of fizzled out a little bit last year. We made a bet on last year's SEC preview that I would pay for tickets to a game of yours if Vanderbilt had a better record. If South Carolina had a better record than Vanderbilt. I thought Vanderbilt would be as good or better than South Carolina. Vanderbilt let me down. However, South Carolina was also not good. They were 5-7.
Yeah.
Do you feel any better about this team? Because I don't.
No. No, I don't. What are they going to do at quarterback? I don't know. No idea.
So they did announce that.
Well, yeah, I guess that guy with the
Lenora Sellers is the
got
starter.
sports goggles, which that's aura right there. That's pretty cool. That's like reminds me of like Josh Dobbs, kind of just crazy looking dude playing QB. But yeah, I think South Carolina. I haven't beaten Missouri, right? Like, so I think that they are another one of those teams in the SEC that could beat a team that's definitely better than them. But they're one of those teams that could only do that once this year, and they will be underdogs more than they will be favorites. So the question really, I bet their win total is 5.5. If I had to guess, maybe it's 6.5.
It is.
Yep, 5.5. So I think the question really is, are they going to make a bowl or not? I don't see them going any higher than 6-6, any lower than 5-7. Very easy team to predict. For me though, because of that Missouri win, 6-6. But yeah, nothing to be like proud of if you're a South Carolina fan. It's kind of like a lame season again.
That line was the biggest fucking hater line I've ever heard come out of your mouth because it was so casual. Well, it was so nothing to be proud of.
You shouldn't. They shouldn't. They are bad.
I love that.
I also forgot we had that bet, Cody. So
yeah,
thanks for reminding me. I'll have to hit you up later.
I still owe you tickets to a game. Yep. And if you are going to buy tickets to a game, use promo code SeatGeek, get $20 off your first purchase on the SeatGeek app. That's my obligatory SeatGeek promo for the day. I have South Carolina going 4-8. I'm just not a huge fan of how this team is built right now. Obviously, Nick Harbor's a fucking weapon, but they're going to have to find ways to get him.
Rocket Sanders is good. I still like him.
Yeah. But yeah, he just needs to stay healthy. He just didn't stay healthy last year. But yep. Keeping it moving to Tennessee. I love this. There are so many teams that I love in the SEC, dude. Like, I love this Tennessee team. I think there's a legitimate shot that this Tennessee team can make the college football playoff. If you look at the beginning of their schedule, there's like 4 or 5 winnable games, and they're bringing they have a quarterback and they have wide receivers, all the same things. But in all seriousness, I like Nico Iamaleava a lot. What he did against that Iowa defense in the bowl game last year, very, very impressive. I think the upgrade from Joe Milton to him is going to be astronomical for this Tennessee team. I love Josh Heupel. He's one of my favorite coaches in the sport. Just the way his offense moves it's a beauty to watch. but it's really going to come down to that middle stretch of their schedule. They have Alabama and Florida and Kentucky and Georgia. Like, can you win? Can you pop off some of those wins? And if they do, I think this Tennessee team has a chance to be pretty damn special. They're good.
Yeah, and I have Tennessee beaten, Kentucky and Alabama. I have them losing to Georgia, but and I also have them losing to Oklahoma. But I think they win the rest of their games on the schedule, and I think 10 wins in this SEC that looks like it's going to be extremely competitive. I think Tennessee gets in at 10-2. So yeah, I think Tennessee's pretty divisive, where a lot of people are like, oh, I don't get the love, they're way overranked, and some people are like, Tennessee is like, they're going to win the SEC. I think it's a realistic prediction is 10-2. Maybe they're like the 9 seed, 10 seed in this 12-team playoff. That makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm going to ride with that. I feel pretty confident in that.
Yep, I am also high on this Tennessee team, and I also have them at 10-2. I think this
Are
is
they
a
a
really,
9.5
really good team.
total?
Their win total is 9.5. There are so many teams in the SEC with a win total at 9.5. Tennessee, Ole Miss, Missouri, Alabama, LSU, all at a 9.5 win total. And then there's the next team, which is Texas. Their win total is 10.5.
So there's 2 at 10.5.
Nick,
Wow.
Tell me, am I crazy? I have Texas missing the college football playoff.
Okay.
I don't think this team, like, they're good. They're good. And Quinn Ewers is good. And Isaiah Bond is good. And they have a lot of really good players on this team.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough because I have 5 teams in the SEC getting to 10 wins. So it's like, are all of them going to make it? Probably, right? But I don't know. So honestly, maybe not. I don't know. I haven't done the math. I haven't done it yet. So you're down on Texas. I'm not necessarily down on Texas. I think you don't like Quinn Ewers as much as the average person. I think that's fine.
I don't. I'll die on that
yeah,
Preston Stone take.
Yeah, I like Quinn Ewers. I think he's great. I think he could be a first round quarterback. I like him a lot. I think they, weapons wise, they lost Jatavion Sanders, Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, but they have guys that I've heard of before coming to play wide receiver for them, like Isaiah Bond, who's great. They have CJ Baxter to replace Jonathan Brooks, and what we saw last year is that he's awesome.
Yeah, except he tore his ACL.
What?
Yeah, he's out for the year.
When did that happen? That is a
like a couple days ago.
Oh my God.
Like very, very, very recent.
Okay, so then that actually makes sense. I haven't seen it, but well, so that's a huge bummer. I think last year I even had the same problem when I was talking about Jonathan Brooks, and you were like, he tore his ACL. It's like, wait, what? So stop tearing your ACL, damn it, over there in Texas. That changes things a little bit, but I still like Sark. I think they lose to Georgia. I have them losing to A&M. But I think they could beat Oklahoma this year. They lost last year. It's a revenge game. And then, you know what? Who else do they even have, right? It's like you were saying, the schedule,
Michigan, week 2.
Michigan. They do have Michigan, which I have Texas winning that game, didn't I?
Yes.
Yeah.
You did.
So obviously that is a good point. But 10-2 for me, not a confident 10-2. And I think if any team out of the SEC was to win 10 games and maybe not make the playoff, it would probably be Texas. But for me, I'm not low on them.
Yeah, I have Texas going 9-3,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm not far. I just also have them losing to Oklahoma. That's the game that we differ on. I have them losing to Georgia, losing to Texas A&M. Texas A&M. That I will say this: November 30th, that is going to be a night game at Kyle Field. That will be the best in-person college football game to attend all year. I will die on that. The environment of that game is going to be the best environment of any game in college football all year. That is a rivalry that has been brewing for years since Texas A&M left the SEC. am like, left the Big 12. I am so excited for that to be back. The Lone Star Showdown is going to be unbelievable.
That would be very cool to go to that game. And
Yep.
Texas A&M's next up on this list as well.
Yep.
So I'm curious as to what you have, but I have been saying I have 5 teams getting to 10 wins. The craziest of those 5 on my end is Texas A&M. I have them getting to 10 wins.
The more I continue to look at this Texas A&M team, and the more that I look at the roster, I go, well, this is an elite roster. Yep. The roster is very good. Mm-hmm. And then I look at their returning production. Like their returning production's close to top 10.
Yep.
And their schedule's not super, super difficult. Obviously, they open the season at home to Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, what do I think of Mike Elko? And I was like, oh, he's consistently over-exceeded expectations his entire career.
Yep.
What is there to be if you were to take this team and you were to rip the Texas A&M logo off of their rip the Texas A&M off their uniforms, and you were to look at this team on paper, and you were to look at their head coach, you would say, well, this is a team that can win 9-10 games. And then you put the Texas A&M logo on, and all of a sudden people, they'll underperform again.
Yep.
They're
Bill
good.
Fisher's gone, and a lot of people don't know how good Connor Wegman is just because he got hurt pretty early last year, where a year that he was probably going to be pretty nationally known by the end of the year. So I think I'm right there with you. I actually have them losing 2 weird games. I have them losing to Florida early, and then, I have them losing to Notre Dame and Florida. So one like game where it's like, Texas A&M is the same Texas A&M, and those games are early, so I could see people being like, "Oh wow, Texas A&M's 2-2, same old Texas A&M." Then they could win out. I think so. I think they're good enough.
So I hate that I am in this situation, but I have Texas A&M beating Notre Dame week 1. I think I like this Texas A&M team a lot. I have them going 9-3. They could beat LSU at home. They could beat Texas at home.
Both
they could beat Notre Dame at home. Like this is their road games this year. Florida, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Auburn. If you're going to play any road games in the SEC, those are the road games to play.
Yeah.
Like Texas A&M, the stars are kind of aligning a little bit. Not all the way.
Are they an 8.5?
But I like them at 9-3.
8.5 win total?
Yep. Win total is 8.5.
Yeah, I think they could definitely clear that. Definitely clear.
All right. We're at 57 minutes. Let's see if we can finish talking about the SEC before an hour. Vanderbilt.
2-10.
And we're done. Perfect. Good stuff. All right. Good job, everybody.
Yeah.
They do play 3 out of conference games. Obviously. Well, they play 4 out of conference games, but they play 3 that I think they can win. They play Alcorn State. I think that game is winnable. They play Ball State. I think that game is winnable. And I do think Georgia State is a winnable.
They're losing to Georgia State.
Well,
Calling it.
It is at Georgia State. So that does worry me a little bit.
Yep. They're losing that game. Georgia State is not that. They're not bad.
Yeah.
The other 2 teams Vanderbilt will beat. 2-10 for me for Vanderbilt. I am always.
I am interested to. Fair. I am interested to see if is it Nate Robinson? The quarterback that they had that transferred in is a
I don't know.
phenomenal athlete.
Okay.
So
I haven't been following.
He'll have like 4 plays a game where it's just like, holy fuck, that guy is fast.
It's like, whoa,
and
cool. And then it's 38-7. Nice.
Yes. All right. So that is the Vanderbilt Commodores, and we did it, Nick, under an hour. So let's go to our SEC prediction. Now, I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't know to a T how the tiebreakers would work. So I have Georgia going undefeated. And then we should probably do our home field plug before we get in there. Speaking of the best of the best. Home field is unbelievable in terms of merch. They have the best college merch in the game. Their SEC lineup is absolutely incredible. They just released Kennesaw State, Old Dominion, but they have, like, if you went to a Division I college, they have merch for your school, and I guarantee you that it's going to be better than any merch that you can find in the bookstore. As you, like, some of y'all listening to this are headed back to college. You're either back in college now or you're headed back this week. Home field merch is the best merch in the game. You will buy that, you will wear it on campus, and people will ask you where you got it because it's that damn good.
Yeah.
So use code Nick15, get 15% off your first purchase at Home Field. The link is in the description of the videos if you want to check that out. All right, SEC prediction. I have Georgia going undefeated, and then I have Missouri and Ole Miss going 11-1. They don't play each other head to head, so I don't know what the tiebreaker would be in this instance.
Who do you have them losing
record
to?
Against common opponent.
Who do you have them losing to?
I have Missouri losing to Alabama, and I have Ole Miss losing to
Georgia, because they're undefeated.
Georgia.
So I think that would make the tiebreaker would go to Ole Miss because they lost to the better team.
Better.
It was something about like the win percentage of opponents lost to or something.
Okay.
Deep down.
So that absolutely could be the case. I was prepared to speak on Georgia versus Missouri.
Sure.
I can speak the exact same thing on Georgia versus Ole Miss. I think Georgia's going to win the conference.
Okay.
They're the best team in the conference.
Yeah.
And that's bold prediction, I know, but I do think they are the best team in the SEC, and I would be very excited to what Missouri or Ole Miss playing for an SEC title. I think would be something pretty cool to see because it's not your typical Georgia, Alabama, LSU, whatever, right? So
yeah, I don't think we're going to see an undefeated team this year. I think that that era of college football might be over. You know, you remember 2018 Clemson was the first team to ever go 15-0, right? Like for a while there, it was really, really hard to do. And then we started seeing it. LSU did it again the next year, and then Alabama did it in the COVID year, and then Georgia has done it. Like it just felt like it was happening so much because the talent disparity was so minimal that it was just all these 5-6 teams had all the best players, blah, blah, blah. Georgia still has like so many of the best players, but it's a little different now. It's a little more dispersed. So I don't think we're going to see an undefeated team. I do have Georgia winning that tiebreaker over A&M, Tennessee, Texas, and that's it because I have Georgia beating Tennessee. I don't think I have them beating Texas. So they win the tiebreaker. Now I have them losing to Ole Miss. So I have Ole Miss going 12.
Wow. Yeah. Ole Miss 12-1 SEC champion, and 12-1 would probably put them at what, the 2 seed if you have Ohio State going undefeated?
I don't have Ohio State undefeated, but I have I actually don't. I think I have Penn State 12-1.
Okay. So that would make for a really interesting playoff conversation, which we will have next week, but that would be awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a very exciting SEC championship.
Ole Miss's one loss would be against Georgia. If that game is close at all, then I would feel pretty confident in this being a possibility that, you know, all Ole Miss needs to do is believe that they can, and then I truly believe that they talent match really well against that Georgia team. But obviously, scary Goliath trying to beat that team. So, and Georgia would have lost now 2 SEC championships in a row, and this time they would finish the season 10-3. Which would be like does 10-3 get you in? That's interesting, Cody, because 10-2, if there are 4 teams at 10-2, and then you're the one that gets to play in the SEC championship and you lose, you would then have a worse record than all the other teams that weren't better than you, you know?
But I would think that you would have to evaluate that as they were so good that they got the tiebreaker in order to get
Exactly. So it would be
into
very
that game,
interesting to see
right?
like you can't just get punished as like, oh well, so they
Yeah,
lost this game. The other teams that weren't good enough to play, they're now better. So we're going to put them in. Georgia's
yeah.
out. No way, right? So
I would agree. I do think it's very interesting though because like say in your situation, so Ole Miss would get the bye. Georgia would have to play an SEC championship game, and then they would roughly get the same seed as Tennessee, who didn't have to play conference championship week, so they basically got a bye.
mhm.
So Georgia actually kind of gets fucked there.
Yeah.
So interesting to see how that would all
But I guess it's
play out. But
that's maybe just worth the risk of like if you win this game, you're safe. Like you, but I don't know.
yeah,
It's interesting, very interesting. We'll have to see how it plays out. But that is
yep.
my official prediction. Yes, I went crazy on my predictions. I believe I had Clemson, Penn State, Ole Miss, and who did I have out of the Big 12? I don't remember.
Not Arizona.
So Clemson, Arizona, Ole Miss,
That would be a wild
those would be the
four
top four.
teams. I love
But
that.
why not, dude? This is the first year of the new playoff.
First
The last
team?
time we had the first year of the new playoff, shit was nuts. Baylor and TCU were both like undefeated, supposed to make it, and they didn't. Like it's craziness could incur.
Hell yeah. All right, let's do our SEC draft. So Nick is leading 2-1 in the drafts via the poll that we put on the Instagram post. So if you guys aren't voting in the Instagram, that's on you. But the poll is on Instagram. Let's be very honest, Nick. I fumbled. I had the pressure of the number one pick in the Big Ten draft, and I just absolutely pissed down my leg. So you are going to get the SEC first pick. We'll see if we can even up the score, and we'll have to we'll do something next week, a draft of the best of the rest, in order to settle this. So, with that being said, you have the first pick. I will take the notes, and we'll go from there. So, who is your first pick? Oh, if you're first time watching this, we are drafting a head coach, quarterback, wide receiver, running back, defense, stadium, tradition, and uniform. I cannot pick the same thing as Nick, and we cannot use the same team twice. So, without further ado, Nick, pick number one.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm going to need to find a way to implement in the graphic that we cannot use the same team twice because that was not a problem the first two posts, but then with the Big Ten,
yeah, all of a sudden
people are like, "How aren't you just picking the whole Ohio State team?" It's like, use your context clues, my friend. We aren't doing that. Anyway, it's interesting having the first pick. You could argue disadvantage. I think first pick is lost now 3 times in a row because I had the first pick in the ACC. It's tricky, in my opinion. The best value compared to the rest of the conference comes at either head coach or defense, and it's the same team. And that's
you're damn right.
Yeah, and the question is, who do I go defense if I go Kirby Smart? I don't know, but if I go Georgia defense, I like some guys head coach wise that would feel right. So I think I'm going to go Georgia defense to start.
Okay. I think that is the right pick. UGA's defense is unbelievable, one of the top units in the country. So I will go head coach then. Since you cannot pick Kirby Smart, I will pick Kirby Smart. I think he is the best coach in college football, and in my mind, that's a pretty easy pick for me.
Yep. I'm going to take Luther Burden. I have to do it. He is the best receiver in that conference. Now, I love some of the other receivers. So I was talking before we started the show. I was like, I kind of want you to pick Brady Cook so that I'm forced to take Burden, but I just am going to go with Burden.
I mean, with the start of UGA's defense and Luther Burden, that's a great phenomenal
I'm drafting
start.
a win here.
Um, yeah, and I don't blame you, which is why I have to go
Mm,
uniforms. And I think the SEC has a lot of great uniforms and a lot of uniforms that are really like steeped in tradition. But there is just something about the Ole Miss powder blues that kind of put a little tingle in your balls. You know what I'm saying? They're so good, and I understand that they're not super traditional or whatever, but they got the navy blue, they got the reds, they got the whites, they got the baby blues. I think their uniform combinations are some of the best in the
baby
sport.
blue.
So I am going
Yeah, that's a great pick.
Ole Miss.
It's a great pick. It's a bummer now because I'm not sure if I'm going to get any shares of Ole Miss because that's what I was going to pick. So, um, okay. In that sense, I'll go quarterback. I'm going to go Quinn Ewers. I know you don't like him. I don't care. I do. I thought about Jackson Arnold, but if I'm drafting to win here, it was him or Milrow, but I kind of like Ewers more.
Yeah, I honestly I don't hate that. I do think Jalen Milrow is kind of overrated. There are a lot of really good quarterbacks in this draft. I mean, obviously neither of us can pick Carson Beck, but he's a top one as well. I'm going to go stadium here, and I'm playing this into my draft
Mm,
strategy. Right? Do I think this is absolutely the best stadium in the SEC? Maybe, but god damn it, the third Saturday of October, and they checkerboard that
Neyland.
stadium, and you hear the Dolly Parton Rocky Top, and you see that checkerboard end zone. There's Neyland Stadium just has something special to it, and that is my pick for the stadium.
Interesting. Yeah, there are a lot of stadiums in the SEC that you could pick. Like I am,
Yeah, not a truly not a wrong
yeah,
pick. Like there are so many great ones.
exactly. Um, all right. So then I'm gonna go with Jarquez Hunter um as my running back. Auburn running back.
Yeah, I mean that's a great pick.
Yeah, I think he's, in my opinion, the best. Now, again, there are a lot of guys. I'm certain that like diehard Big Ten football fans probably aren't even going to know who that is. So it's not like the best pick as far as trying to win, but he is, in my opinion, the best running back in the SEC.
I don't hate that at all. I don't hate that one bit. I do think he's unbelievably underrated. A big play threat every time he touches the ball. I'm also going to go running back because truly the only one that we both have open for the same thing is tradition, and I don't know what I'm going to pick for that. There's so many great ones in the SEC, but I'm going to go running back, and I'm going to go with Oklahoma's Gavin Sawchuk.
Mm,
I think he is super underrated. Uh, Powerful physical runner, but he has some speed, like top end. And I think Oklahoma is going to be able to run the football pretty well. So give me Gavin Sawchuk.
nice. He's good. I worry about the O line there, but he doesn't make him not a great running back. So I'm gonna go stadium. I'm gonna go Death Valley Junior, mind you, but Death Valley out in Baton Rouge. Um, it's really tough with stadiums because there's Bryant Denny, there's Kyle Field, there's the Swamp, there's Owen Field. Um, so many options, but I think LSU's is highly regarded as top 3 SEC stadium wherever you look. So,
Yeah, I wanted to force you into making that pick.
hmm.
I wanted to force you into having to say Death Valley
Death
out
Valley
loud.
Junior. But yeah,
And I'm very interested to see. I hope you put Death Valley Jr. on the graphic and piss off every
can't
LSU
do
fan
that.
that has
Thank
ever.
God I make
They,
graphic.
they, I was gonna say I will win the vote hands down if that is the
Yeah,
case.
no.
Um, yeah, I might as well take my guy. Brady Cook is still on the board, and that is going to be my quarterback. He's him. He's great. He's outstanding.
Yeah.
So give me Brady Cook.
Okay, for uniform, I'm gonna go with Mississippi State's all white uniform. It again. It's
Ooh.
so clean in my opinion. It's a beauty.
With the state script on the
Yeah,
helmet is such a clean
it's
look.
sick. Now there are so many uniforms to pick from, but I wanted to give a little shout out to Mississippi State. So go with those.
Yep. I think that will be the only time that they're used on the graphic,
Yep.
but damn good. That's a great pick. Wide receiver is a tough one for me. There are a lot of good ones. I think I'm going to go with Isaiah Bond. Um, great wide receiver. Excited to see how he looks with Quinn Ewers this year in the burnt orange. So
Yeah, no Trey
give me
Harris. I wanted
Isaiah
to pick
Bond.
Trey Harris. Obviously, Bond was up there as well. Um,
Yep.
but so then that leaves tradition and coach. I think we're both going to just go tradition at the end here. So I
Yep.
will go coach. And if I go coach, it means I have to go with Josh Heupel because
Wow.
I already picked Sark. I picked Texas, picked Georgia. I could go Kalen DeBoer, but I don't know. Heupel, I think, would appease the SEC fans more as far as a newcomer.
Yeah, see, that was I thought you were going to go Kalen DeBoer or Lane Kiffin even.
Yeah, Kiffin
But
is fun, but I don't know.
Kiffin would have been a good choice for specifically for the graphic, but
Maybe.
I don't hate that at
I
all.
like Heupel a lot, man.
Um,
I wonder though. You are
yeah,
making me think that maybe a lot of people don't have an opinion, and I wasn't thinking about that, but we'll see.
yep. I'm gonna go defense, and gun to my head, you're gonna make me pick the Alabama Crimson Tide defense. Oh God, no! Lord help
Yep.
me. They'll still be. I don't think they're going to be like the elite of the elite defensive units that we've seen, like those mid 2010s Alabama teams. But I do still think that this Alabama defense is going to be really good. So give me the Bama defense. And Nick, I'm going to force your hand. You're going to have to pick tradition before I
Yeah.
do.
I'm between two. I could go Dixieland Delight here. That one's very, very well known, but real ball knowers probably prefer the Florida I Won't Back Down because that shit is awesome. I would love to experience that. So it's really tough. I obviously could go Sandstorm as well. I will not be going with Sandstorm. I will tip my cap that it is a cool tradition, but no, I'm not picking it. What do I do, Cody? I don't know. Do I pander? Do I go pander pick and appease the Alabama fans? No, I don't. I won't back down. That's my pick.
He won't back down. And that sucks because that's the one that I wanted. Because I cannot pick Dixieland Delight because I picked Alabama's defense. And it puts me in a kind of a tough little spot here. I could do the Rebel Yell with Texas A&M, but like, is
You have the cowbell.
that really the cowbells of Mississippi State?
Woo pig
There's a lot. Little woo pig,
Woo pig.
little woo pig. But I'm gonna go with a tradition that it pisses some people off. I think some people in suits don't like it. I think some nerds and some fucking losers don't like it. But you know what? Suck that tiger dick, bitch. I'm going with LSU's neck. Goes hard. Goes hard.
That's a cool pick. You know, people are going to be like, yo, curse words. I'm voting for Cody. Fuck. Genius.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes you just got to kiss ass to the crowd, man. And I'm doing it.
All right.
I'm shamelessly. I fumbled so hard. I had to come back with a strong
This
draft.
one is going to be really close. This one's going to be really close. I'm hoping people right in the middle of the screen, they're going to see Luther Burden. They're going to see Georgia defense. They're going to be like, oh shit, Nick won. But other than that, I mean, obviously you have Kirby Smart, which helps. So it's interesting.
But brother, Matt, it is a night game in Death Valley. You have Won't Back Down blaring through the stadium. The entire crowd is singing along. The Mississippi State script looks unbelievable on the helmets as the team runs out of the tunnel with Georgia's defense and then a Josh Heupel-led offense with Hunter Ewers throwing absolute darts to Luther Burden. I mean, you cannot build a more
That
perfect
team's
team than
12 and
that.
0, right? That team's
That's
13 and 0, 15 and 0, 16 and 0, whatever it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
unbelievable. Unbelievable. The only team better, in my mind,
There you go.
is led by Kirby Smart. And they have that Alabama defense led by Kirby Smart. I mean, it's tough to be better than that. You have the Ole Miss uniforms that look absolutely fire in the checkered Neyland Stadium, which hindsight's 2020. What a color clash. But Ole Miss, beautiful uniforms in the checkered Neyland Stadium. You have Brady Cook throwing absolute bombs to Isaiah Bond, and then Gavin Sawchuk, little one cut, taking it to the house. This is going to be I think this is going to
as
be
the fans are screaming, "Suck that Tiger dick!"
suck that Tiger dick. Which, I mean, this is going to be a very close poll. I'm excited to see who wins. But that being said, if you like this content and all of our stuff, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Next up, we are doing the best of the rest. So the Pac-2, Notre Dame, and then our personal favorites from the group of 5. And then, Nick,
And
we get to do a week 1 preview.
begins.
We get to do a week 1 preview episode. Football is here. We're so back.
Yeah. Absolutely ecstatic for it.
Oh yeah.
I'll get this graphic over to you very soon. All right.
Yep. We will see y'all in the next one.
Adios.